specifications, carcass specifications do we have for certified Angus beef?
10.
What'd you say?
10.
10. Very good. We have 10 carcass specifications. Started out with 8. We're at 10, and we have 1 live specification. Let's see if this carcass qualifies for certified Angus beef. Okay? First, the live specification. Before it's offered up to be evaluated for the carcass specification, we need to first identify whether or not it was a black-hided animal. Angus genetics will most likely produce a black-hided animal. And so it needs to be 51% or greater solid black hide. There is an A stamped on the carcass. It's very vague to see here, but there is an A stamped on that carcass. That is the Angus determination right there. GLA is what it's called, okay? There's an A stamp to say that this was an Angus type animal. So we're good. We can evaluate this now for certified Angus beef. So now we got to look at some of our specifications. We have the very first and foremost specification, the one that we are so proud of, the one that we make sure that everybody remembers. If you don't remember anything else from this week, please remember this. Modest or higher marbling. Okay, ready? Modest or higher marbling. Very, very good. Let's evaluate that. USDA is our evaluators, and it is the graders, not the inspectors, but the graders. The inspector evaluates this carcass for wholesomeness. Is it safe to eat? Yes, it is. They put the inspection legend right there. That is called the inspection bug or inspection legend. And that is now, they did that on the harvest floor. Once this animal was harvested, they inspected it and said, yes, it's safe to eat. The grader is a separate entity. That individual will tell you whether or not this carcass is going to be good. It is going to look at the quality of that particular carcass, okay? The eating quality potential of that carcass. So the grader evaluated this. And they first looked at this ribeye. This is the 12th and 13th rib separation. This is what's done in all U.S. plants for grading. This is how we offer them up for grading. This one little area will determine just how old, or just how much quality is in this entire carcass. The minimum amount of marbling for USDA choice is small. Are we just choice? No. We're above choice, right? Well, we're within the choice grade, but the minimum amount of marbling is small. Okay? Look at this. This is the actual USDA card that the USDA grader will use. He will evaluate that and say, is there enough marbling in there to at least be called choice? Say yes. Say it louder. Yes. 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 Okay. Is there more than just the choice card?
Yes.
We need to go to the next one, right? Let's go to the next one. Okay. The next one is modest marbling. This is the minimum amount of marbling for certified Angus beef. Are we there?
Yes.
Is there a sufficient amount of marbling to be considered at least modest?
Yes.
Is there more than that?
Yes.
I would agree. The next category, we don't talk a lot about this, but this is great. If we're starting to look at this card, this is great because this is one step below prime. Let's look at that card. Are we there?
Yeah.
Pretty darn close. Okay? I would say that this is close to a moderate carcass, but you always want to check and see just one more. Are we there at prime yet? Oh man. The minimum amount of marbling for prime, slightly abundant. Okay? We're somewhere in between there. Would you agree? Yes. Absolutely. Okay? It's a beautiful looking ribeye. So we have sufficient marbling. Not many cattle actually can get to the marbling specification, let alone the other 9. We have sufficient marbling. The second spec is, not only do we need a lot of marbling, we're picky about just how fine that marbling is. We want medium to fine texturing in that marbling. What we like to call snowflake marbling. And that's what we see, a lot of little tiny flecks of fat. Not just big chunks of fat that are going to render out when you cook it. Nice tiny flecks of fat evenly dispersed throughout the ribeye. Okay, we see that. The third specification, a maturity specification. This animal came in, possibly had a birth certificate, but most likely did not. We need to evaluate just how old this particular carcass is, physiologically, by what the body is saying. Okay, not chronologically, by what the clock is saying. So we look at the color of the lean. This is a nice, bright cherry red color. Older animals will have darker lean. Okay, this is definitely a younger animal by just looking at that lean itself. That's the meat. Okay, but we also look at skeletal maturity. And you can see these are called feather bones right here. Kind of, if you squint and use your imagination, it kind of looks like half of a feather. Okay, feather bones. And you see these little bits of white at the tips here? That is cartilage. It's not yet bone. As an animal gets older, that will become bone. The next specs that we have are actually sizing specs that were put into place in 2007 primarily for the food service industry. We want a ribeye that's between 10 and 16 square inches. I'll give you an example of that. Everybody kind of see this? The green line on the inside is 10 square inches. The blue line is 16 square inches. We'll set that on the ribeye and see if we're between that. Did you say we're kind of in between? It's very close to 10, but it is at least larger than 10. Okay? And that's to keep the steak sizes consistent. You wouldn't want a 20-inch ribeye in a box with an 8-inch ribeye. Get what I'm saying? Because of the thicknesses of steaks that you would have to get based on the weights that we sell them by, right? You sell them by 10-ounce, 12-ounce steaks. We still sell them by weight, not by dimension. We don't want carcasses that are too heavy. This carcass has a hot carcass weight, which means it was weighed on the harvest floor at 756 pounds. Half of that weight you see here, 325 pounds of it, approximately. Or 375 pounds, excuse me. Okay? We also want to make sure that we have less than an inch of back fat at this measurement right there, at that point right there. Okay? That's definitely less than an inch. We want sufficient back fat to make sure that this carcass doesn't chill too fast after the harvesting process, because that could possibly cause some toughening. But we also want to make sure that we don't have too much, because that's stuff that you're going to have to throw away. We don't want to be doing that. It's yield. Alright? The last specifications we look for beef type characteristics. Is this a nice round ribeye? There's a lot of dairy cattle out there that are being harvested. All those bull calves, if they don't go to veal, they'll be fed out and go to beef production. But that ribeye is going to be about half that size and really long. A lot of prime cattle, USDA prime cattle, are Holsteins. That's very different from Certified Angus Beef Prime, isn't it? Certified Angus Beef Prime is going to have a nice round ribeye. It's going to look nice on the plate. It's very good presentation. Outside of that, we want to make sure that we don't have a neck hump. This is the neck hump right here that exceeds 2 inches in height based on where it shows up and where it terminates. Okay, we draw a line right there. And that's to keep those Brahman cattle, the ones you see in the rodeos, from getting into our program. The last two specifications, no blood splash in the ribeye. Looks like bruising, little splotches of bruising in the ribeye. We don't want that. It's not unsafe, it just doesn't look good. And if you're going to be paying for a premium product, it needs to look like a premium product. And then finally, no dark cutting beef, which means if I cut this ribeye and it didn't bloom up to that bright cherry red, which means when we cut this is kind of a dark color. As oxygen comes in and binds to those molecules in the ribeye, it's going to brighten up, just like rust. Okay, it's the same exact reaction. If it doesn't bloom up, there's possibility that this could have been a dark cutting carcass, meaning that the pH in that ribeye is not sufficient enough to get that nice bright cherry red. Alright, it's a stress-induced quality defect. An animal that's either physically or mentally stressed immediately prior to harvest can possibly have that condition. Doesn't look good, doesn't taste good, and you can have tenderness issues. We don't want it. That's our 10 specifications.